I discovered my wife, 28F, of 7 years, is cheating on me, 30M. She doesn't know that I know. Update 6, night out with bras. So my friends took me out on a night on the town. I had informed them ahead of time that I would not be drinking. They informed me ahead of time they would be drinking. Oh well. The dudes who took me out on the town were fake names Jim, my friend from high school who knew Emily and I both. He's married. Jim was pretty floored that Emily did this. Matt was a groom I met early on when Emily was working her job. Early on in Emily's career, before John, a bride had her hair and makeup artist bail last minute, and my wife jumped in because she was the first person they called who said yes on short notice. I packed along her hair and makeup stuff. Emily since has had everything packed up in an efficient way, but this was at the beginning before she had everything down to a science. I sat with Matt and chatted him up and calmed him down before his wedding, while his bride and mine did their thing. We had a lot in common, and the time flew by fast. Emily and I kept up with him and his wife and went on couples dates with them occasionally, but mainly Matt and I would hang with Jim. Bob is our single friend. Well, I guess I am too now. He's always the odd man out with the couples, but the married guys would hang with him so we could live vicariously through his singleness. You can just set up a board game in your living room and leave it. We'd mainly get together and play D&D. Yeah, we're nerds. Bob is the DM. We went out to dinner at a pretty nice steakhouse, which was a nice change from protein shakes, but it was still kinda hard to eat. Eat your steak, you pussy, followed by laughter was the catchphrase. I got it all down like a big boy. After dinner, I recounted to them most of the saga that's in my posts minus some details. I don't want exactly what I know to get back to Emily, even though these guys are trustworthy. They were very supportive. They couldn't believe Emily did that to me, and they couldn't believe I did that to Emily. They were pretty upset with Emily. Matt told me that he heard Emily is really struggling. I stopped him right there and told him I didn't want to talk about or hear about Emily beyond what we had already talked about. The steak dinner was delicious, but expensive. Afterwards, we went to this country dive bar Bob heard about. It's the kind of place where the floors are one large glue trap for human beings. The floors were sticky enough that I had to re-tie my shoes with double knots. That's how you know you're in a good dive bar, right? They were drinking beer and bourbon shots while I was staying sober. I don't need the alcohol fairy advising me to call Emily and cry and weep and then eat a bullet. Nope. I talked to my dad a couple of days beforehand and he told me to stay away from alcohol. I was way ahead of him on that one. And that real men drink bitters and soda when they're not drinking booze at a bar and not diet soda or mocktails. Those are for pussies. I asked the bartender for a bitters and soda, confident that I'd be looked at like a manly man, and she teased me and said, "Okay, Grandpa," and poured me some club soda and shook some droplets from what looked like a brown Tabasco bottle. Thanks, Dad. I liked the taste, though. I soon became stuck in that sober guy limbo where everything is funny, but in 1 hour you're going to be babysitting adult toddlers. The guys got more and more shit-faced and more enraged about what Emily did to me. They were wanting to call her up and yell at her. I told them I took care of it and talked about that video. I linked a bunch of times here about how absolute silence and no contact is the right way to treat a cheater. They seemed to agree. Jim was calling the female bartender bro. Matt was downing a draft beer while stuffing steak nachos down his throat. After a steak dinner, he and his wife are pesky vegetarians. So, I have aided and abetted dietary infidelity, just like Bev did with real actual penis adultery. I have no shame now. Matt paid for that sudden intake of red meat later. We had some lively conversations about politics and their relationships, but not mine. Just to head off the questions, I don't know if there were any pretty girls there. I wasn't really looking. I felt like a burn victim, like everyone was staring at me and doing that thing where you inhale sharply between clenched teeth. After the bar kicked us out at the end of the night, I herded them into Jim's minivan and kept Bob from purchasing a homeless man's dog. Jim didn't need that smell in his minivan, and Jim's wife would harpoon me. Matt was moaning and holding his stomach. I stole a trash bag from the little closet in the bar's restroom just in case he needed to throw up. I drove them all home, let them get their own cars the next day. I walked Bob to his bed, thought the better of it, and decided to just cut out the middleman and deposited him in front of his toilet, head hanging over the side. I gave Matt over to his pregnant wife and told her that it will be Matt who's vomiting for a change. She tried to talk with me about Emily, but I politely shut it down quickly. I don't know why her friends are so invested in us getting back together. I can only assume they don't know the whole story. I don't want to reveal details to anyone until I absolutely have to. I drove Jim's minivan home to his house. I shoveled Jim into his master bath, where he proceeded to sacrifice his expensive steak dinner to the porcelain gods. It's okay, I didn't pay for it. Jim's wife gave me a big hug and asked me how I'm holding up. I said, as good as can be expected. She said that I should concentrate on whatever new beginning I choose next. I guess I just won at STBX Bingo, because I think that's the top 3 things I've been hearing and saying lately. I paid for a ride back to the bar, where I made sure all their cars were locked before I drove mine to the hotel where I'm staying currently. Sunday night we played D&D and Codenames at Bob's place. None of us drank. I had a good time then too. I'm going back to work on Monday. By that I mean I'll be bringing my laptops either to the public library or a coffee shop to do my work. I don't have any in-person meetings scheduled for my office next week. I think I'm just going to lay low and establish a new normal next week or maybe the week after. I'll be moving over to my dad's friend's Airbnb remodel and helping out there in my spare time. That will be my home for the foreseeable future. Right now, we're waiting on the credit card records and, to my knowledge, Emily hasn't gotten a lawyer yet. Come on, default judgment. My lawyer told me John's wife contacted her. She didn't get any more specific than that. Nothing from Bev or her husband. They're Emily's friends, not mine. I did her hubby a favor. What happens next is up to him. To answer the multiple questions here, the only overnights Emily had during the time period of her affair were when she visited her parents 3 times. I verified it with them each time. Not because I was paranoid, but I just liked talking to my MIL, and it was an excuse to chat with her. The 3rd time Emily went, she came down with the flu, and MIL took care of her for a couple of days. I called every day. I'm pretty convinced that she didn't do overnights with John. The closest she came was during New Year's Eve. I suppose Emil could have aided and abetted her infidelity, but she's very religious, and I don't believe she'd do that. Not gonna lie, it would hurt a lot if she did. As far as news of Emily, I have no idea, since I'm no contact. Matt said his wife said that Emily is struggling, and that's it. I hope she gets help if it gets too bad. I checked the cameras, and Emily seems to have moved out of the house. I believe she's with her parents currently, which is a hell of a commute for her, so she's probably taking time off work too. I'll update if anything significant happens, believe me. Otherwise, I probably won't be as active on here as I was last week. Update 7. Meeting John's wife and MIL. A lot has happened, and I'll just go through it all in order. I don't have the credit card records yet, but my lawyer says that she successfully got a gag order, or something like that, so that Emily and John won't be notified of the subpoena until we get the records in our eager little hands. I expect a huge shitstorm from Emily when she gets that news, trying to turn the narrative in any angle she can so that she doesn't come off as some kind of crazy hooker. I met with John's wife. I'll call her Lisa. She was devastated by all of this, but not surprised. She told me John cheated on her when she was pregnant with their 3rd child. We got to talking about the sequence of events, especially towards the end, where John got more and more invested in my wife. We talked about New Year's Eve, and Lisa said that she had taken their 3 kids to Orlando for the holidays, and John had come, but then left early and wasn't there for NYE. Lisa said that John had FaceTimed her during the countdown, and she's 100% certain that he was at their house. She was so pissed to the point of tears. She had someone check the Ring camera footage, and sure enough, there was John and Emily both arriving in John's car and him pulling her into their house. She didn't look very excited to be there, but she wasn't struggling either. Emily had driven her car on New Year's Eve, so I don't know what happened. I told Lisa at least Emily didn't get pregnant from the guy, and Lisa assured me that it wasn't possible, or at least not probable. After she caught him cheating after their 3rd kid, she demanded he get a vasectomy as part of the conditions of staying together, and she drove him to the appointment herself because she didn't trust him. LOL. Cowboys shooting rubber bullets now. Lisa has put my lawyer on retainer, so we're going to be divorce buddies, I guess. We're forming a little club where we have sleepovers, eat s'mores, and braid each other's hair, and spill the tea on Timothée Chalamet. It's going to be great. Lisa shared a bunch of stuff with me, which is basically more communications between John and Emily, where John begs her to see him and compliments her, and tells her he bought a new outfit for her, and wants to see her in it. The timeline of messages had her being friendly at first, but getting more and more cold over time. Poor John. I asked Lisa if she was aware of John's lingerie fetish, and she said she could probably open a resale store with just her stuff alone. Ha! Just to head off any comments, Lisa and I are kind of supporting each other through this, as we alone know what the other is going through. She asked me all kinds of questions about Emily. I tell her I don't want to know a thing about John. Sex is pretty much the furthest thing from my mind, and honestly, I don't think I could get it up for anyone who's been with John. I low-key hate the guy. Also, my lawyer told me to be really careful about being around Lisa because we're both going for an at-fault divorce, and us being physically close in any proximity could look like we're having an affair, which would count against both of us in our divorces. Always do what your lawyer tells you to do. I moved out of the residence hotel and into the Airbnb remodel. My role there will just be painting, some sheetrock work, laying down vinyl plank flooring, and just letting the service people in and out of the place at all hours of the day. It's a welcome distraction to everything that's going on. It's kind of funny, this place. It has thoroughly modern kitchen. The fridge has a touchscreen tablet embedded in it. This kitchen could hack into the Pentagon and turn them all vegan. The rest of the house is a shit pit. LOL. The AC works and it's got a new roof and internet though, so I'm happy. I unblocked my MIL and we chatted a bit over text, just surface level stuff. She asked to meet me and promised that Emily would not be there. I wanted to see her, so I agreed to meet her in a remote spot. I told her that if Emily was there, I'd immediately leave and cut her off forever. She agreed, and we met. I drove out to a public park a good distance from where the Airbnb is. She came. Emily was not there. She teared up when she saw me and said I looked so thin. She took me to her car and unloaded a ton of groceries on me. She bought me eggs, chicken, some steaks, homemade soup, homemade cookies, my favorite spinach casserole that she made, and a ton of fruits and vegetables. She told me to start eating well, or she was going to move in with me and nag me until I did. I almost took her up on that. Being alone sucks. We chatted some, and towards the end, she started doing that thing where you want to talk, but you know you can't. Lots of starts and stops as she was trying to find a loophole in my conditions. I felt sorry for her, so I told her we could talk about one thing. I know, I shouldn't have caved, but that's the reason I ghosted Emily. I cave around people who are emotional like that. I just want them to feel okay and to be the person responsible for them feeling okay. The loophole she invoked was that she didn't want to talk about Emily. She wanted to talk about reconciliation. I told her what I wrote in these posts and comments. My marriage to Emily is over. Even if we were to get back together, which we won't, it will be over because we're different people now. I told Mill that Emily wants to reconcile with the person I was before I found out the truth about her. I treated her great. I was a good husband. I was loyal and loving. That person doesn't exist anymore. The person I am now would treat her daughter badly. I would probably lash out verbally abusing her all the time. I would be miserable thinking about what she's doing every time she walks out our front door, and I'd make her daughter miserable too. Emily would no longer love me because I'd be this sad, miserable shadow of who I was. I wouldn't be the guy she fell in love with. I'm different now. Emily might say that she loves me, but anyone can say anything. All I have to go by are her actions, and her actions tell me that she's only sorry she got caught. She is not taking accountability for her willingly destroying our marriage. There's no possible magical phrase she can say that will make me okay with what she did. I can't forget about it. I told MIL I have evidence that she's not privy to that. Will back up my claims that Emily knew what she was doing, and she's not a victim in this. Mill was very interested in seeing it, and I told her she will when my lawyer says it's okay. I mentioned what I've said before about Emily being with John and then coming home and kissing me without brushing her disgusting mouth first. I think that hit home. MIL looked mortified. Emil talked about therapy for us both, individually and together, and said that she'd pay for it. She said that she'd been reading online about reconciliation and that it's possible. I told her I'd read about it too, and the stories that stand out to me are the ones where the person who cheated was remorseful and did the work, but after a number of years pass, cheats again and is not remorseful, and leaves the cheated on person who took them back for the affair partner. Only now there are kids involved. The most successful reconciliations I've heard of are with two people who don't fully trust each other and never will. I would either be this suicidal sucker or a loving husband who has cruel emotional outbursts and PTSD moments. I asked her if she would want to live like this. She agreed she wouldn't. I told her that Emily is not telling her the whole story, and that I have evidence that this was a willing ongoing affair and not SA or coercion or grooming. I told her to get Emily into therapy so that she can maybe try to fix whatever inside her caused her to do this terrible thing, that if she were able to fix that about herself and be loyal, that she'd make a great partner. She's only 28. She's very beautiful. She has no kids and a successful business. I told her there were probably hordes of guys wanting to marry and have kids with Emily, and that male could still count on having grandkids, but just not from me. She said she wished I would think about it, and I told her I've already gone over every possible future Emily and I have in my spare time, and I just can't do it. Emily betrayed me. I told Emily's mom that she needed to either get a lawyer for Emily or to get Emily to sign whatever offer my lawyer puts in front of her. I was kind of hoping for a default judgment, but I think I'll have no such luck. Emily's family will probably get her a lawyer, and then Hurricane Emily will blow through my life for a bit until we're finally done with this. Divorce is a flaming hellscape we all crawl through alone. I have no kids with her, thank God, so I'll be able to make a clean break of it when this is all done. I'll never be able to fucking forget this shit though. It's always going to be a part of me, and that sucks. It fucking sucks that a person can mark another person so heavily that they're always scarred by it. Maybe it's a healthy thing that I'm more distrustful, standoffish, and skeptical about people now, but I can't help but think that my being changed like this would have really upset my mom. It's probably a good thing she didn't live to see this version of me. Thank you very much for listening or watching. It helps to support this channel either way. We greatly appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to further support and not miss another story. Until next time, have a great day or night.